What's up? Happy Monday, everybody out there in YouTube land. It's your buddy Choppadong. We are going to dive in today, do a little bit of recap of the week before, and then we'll talk a little. We got that experiment, the NHL experiment kind of going on. Want to show you a little bit of Draftkings PGA. But more importantly, we're going to dive in and create a Draftkings NBA player pool today. So stay tuned for that while we dive in and recap what we talked about on Friday as we left, or Saturday, I guess it was. I think I did a rare Saturday video. NHL wise, because I've got that contest going where I'm trying to show you the difference between not stacking for cash and stacking for GPPs in NHL and how important that correlation is. Because one thing that I'm going to start talking about to you guys is blurring those lines between cash and GPP and kind of throwing them out the window. Because you can take one approach or the other and just realize that you have to realize what it is you're trying to do. Hopefully you appreciate this type of stuff. You appreciate the banter as we go along. We walk through player pools for the day, get your research pointed in the right direction. You hopefully give back to the community a little bit more than we take. You reward me for that with a subscribe, maybe a notification bell, something like that on YouTube to let me know that the content needs to keep coming. Maybe a comment, in which case I'll probably respond. And we'll try and roll forward that way. Retweets out on Twitter are always nice. As you know, I'm doing March sweeps where I have volunteered to buy 1, 2, 3 members, whatever, their memberships based on how many people sign up through these links. And of course, the retweets are what spread the word. So that's what I'm counting on you guys to help me do so that we can buy more and more memberships. We bought them every month since November. And in fact, let me get sidetracked here for a second, as I love to do, and dive over in here. Where's the winning lineups page? Because I want to show you something. Good old Michael Stepney. Where's he? Well, Team Bruce is on fire. 100 and something in, 2,600 out. That's a pretty good lineup, right? You'll see that in our email and see that being tweeted out. But Michael Stepney here is the winner of February sweeps. I bought his membership. He'd been wanting to try DFS Army for a while. He gets in, he hits the ground running. We have bankrolls of people playing hundreds of dollars a day, a few dollars a day. It doesn't really matter. I'm on the smaller side, as you know, but Michael's winning. All green, all green, all green. So DFS Army works, man. That's why you got to get down into the VIP, the comments section, and become a VIP. Use coupon code CHOP, trigger that 10% or 20% off discount, actually. It's not a 10% off, it's a 20% off discount. Help me spread the word on March sweeps. Let's dive in and talk a little recap. The cash lineup did okay. It cashed on Saturday. The idea behind it, you can see 48th here with a whopping 98 score, but it's good enough to get over halfway. That's all we care about. We're targeting a 130, but if we don't hit it, but we still hit the top half, we did our job. It's all good in the hood. We were looking a little bit more at spreading out on that Saturday slate. Once you got a Columbus guy, you don't need Panarin to pay that price. Atkinson a little bit high. Seth Jones a little bit okay. But the center on that top line is typically going to do the damage if anybody's going to do any. And he had an okay day. An assist, couple of, a shot, I guess one shot on goal, whatever. Then you've got Thomas Hertl, who's been lighting it up in San Jose. Of course, had another good day. That's just a little bit of paying attention to. My tip to you is line 2 on the road, line 1 at home. It's what we preach about inside DFS Army all the time. If you don't know what that means, then you need to ask for clarification inside the coaching channels. Draisaitl has been really very steadily producing lately, and bam, we get a dud out of him. So, shit happens. What you going to do? Vetrano, a value play. Do you realize the dude has 30 goals this year? I don't think a lot of people know. I should shut my hole. But there is a value play for 4,500. Dude's got 30 goals on the year. Nobody's playing him. Nobody notices him, and I love it. Zach Hyman, third liner in Toronto, gave me a little bit of Toronto exposure. Was more of a salary saver. Down at that level, he scored. Drouin's been hot for Montreal. Shea Weber's been hot for Montreal. Those are, I think, the only couple of guys that I paired up. If I look down this lineup, try to really saw Edmonton, Draisaitl, and Nurse, because Nurse has been producing for Edmonton as well. They just didn't. Draisaitl and Nurse got me 3 points combined between the two of them. That's not going to help you out. But, it appears it didn't. Nobody else really went off to gain leverage on me for missing on that play, so it ended up working out. Missed the win on both my goalies with Rittich just trying to think that they can beat Vancouver here. Calgary could beat Vancouver. They did not. So, shit happens. But again, 48 out of 100, it gets you into the money. It was a non-stacked lineup, had no upside to it whatsoever, but it did have a decent enough floor that it got us in there. No big deal. Looking at the couple of GPP lineups that I built where I did stack, of course, I ran a Vegas stack here with The standard, this is my standard stack. I'll run a defenseman, a winger, and a center, or a defenseman and two wingers. It's typically what I will do to try and grab the plays that overlap. A couple of different scoring lines. In GPPs, I'll put them on the same scoring line or the same power play. In cash games, I may put them on different scoring lines, but I will stack in cash. That's what I was getting at when I say blur the lines between cash and GPPs, because if the GPP lineup, it's going to be boom or bust. We know that. The 141 here and the 93 here when it works and when it doesn't work, you know? And that's okay as long as you realize that and you're also put yourself in the upside contest. Like I would play the other one, the 98 score, as a cash only lineup. When I'm not stacking, I'm not putting that in GPPs very often because I know its upside is limited. But in a contest like this, or in a stacking situation or a stacking lineup like this, where I'm going to be going for upside, those lineups, when they hit, also destroy cash. So I will put them in some cash lineups and kind of back build them, if you will, because I want to win the cash or miss with the cash. I'm going to get close, fairly often. Still got close with this one, but and a lot of times you'll end up with like a 101 or something like that will end up triggering the double up, will trigger the cash money too, and it misses the GPPs that you were really aiming for. But when it goes well, you're going to want to get paid on it. And this one did all right. Top 100 out of 1,200 people, 141st place, was good enough for triple the money at $6. So it ended up, I had a dollar or so in the cash lineup and $4, and this was in for 5 out for 6. Big old profit of a dollar, but profit is profit. Can't beat it. Can't argue with it because it doesn't happen all the time. We were centered here around a Vegas stack because Vegas had some value in it and was in an okay spot. Columbus was on the road, and I wasn't going to run Bobrovsky anyway. And then San Jose's been hot, so that was my bigger, higher priced stack, and that's why it triggered the value in Vegas. Carlson's a little underpriced, Marshall's a little bit underpriced. Colin Miller on the power play one is very underpriced. He produced really well for his $3,600 salary. That's been typical of what he's been. Hell, he brought the same amount of points as Brent Burns did for double the salary, double the salary. It's just about hitting on the value. Again, missed the win. Did I get the win over here? I did. I got the win over there. I didn't notice that. And that still only scored 93 points because the Montreal stack was a big letdown. These guys have been really, really hot. And then Toronto was a letdown. Well, that was the Hyman lineup. San Jose, Pittsburgh, Toronto. Didn't do much outside of that, did we? Montreal, full 4-stack. Stacked that top line and put Shea Weber up there with him. Very boomer bust. Very boomer bust strategy. And it busted. It didn't perform. And then it was one-off around that. Basically one-offs around these guys. Had enough money left for Kucherov, which was nice, but he didn't do anything either. I was very happy with this lineup going into the day. Felt like Montreal, if they just did what they've normally been doing, and I had a little bit of sneaky stuff in Kadri, had a little bit of sneaky stuff, in Timo Meyer, who's not, Tomas Hertl, but at the same time, Kucherov in there can be a slate breaker when he performs as well. Although I would encourage you to look at Braden Point's numbers because Braden Point has been scoring more than Kucherov all year, and Braden Point is cheaper than Nikita Kucherov, so your value is still in Braden Point when you're playing Tampa Bay. That said, that gets us in and out of these, but just, again, showing you that we're going to hit higher scores more often when we stack, and it is okay to run those in cash lineups as well. The PGA contests over on DraftKings, I don't play much on DraftKings anymore, but I saw a lot of overlay in the 20 max dime contest. Had that alerted to me by our guys in DFS Army. They were yelling at me, why aren't you playing? Why aren't you playing? I was like, I don't like Pebble Beach. I love the tournament. I don't like the way it was setting up with all the withdrawals, with all of the guys that were, the rain and the weather and everything else. Just felt like it was going to be a very, very random tournament where there was really no core, really any edge that was easily identifiable to build around, if you will. But with all of this overlay, I went ahead and bit the bullet. I think within the final 30 minutes, and I hadn't done a lot of research, I relied heavily on our domination station optimizer. And I had a couple of guys that I liked. I went down and took one of the cheaper punts, a $6,500 guy or so that had been making cuts lately and was playing pretty well. I locked him into all of my lineups because typically I'm finding that if you want to pick from a couple of winners, not just one guy like a Dustin Johnson and try and hit the winner, you've also got to have a second runner in there that can also do it. So a couple of those higher priced guys, and that locking in that punt like a drop score in Fanduel NBA is working. On Showdown Hockey, it's working. You lock in a low priced punt that actually has a shot at doing well. In golf, it would be making the cut, maybe an outside shot hitting the top 20. In hockey, it would be a punt that actually has enough ice time that he can score a goal without it being completely lucky. In basketball, of course, it's upside to say 30 points, backup point guard that gets the start, something along those lines. But you don't mind wasting the opportunity if it doesn't pan out because it's not going to cost you a lot to do it. It's like a cheap tight end punt, in your utility on NFL DraftKings when you go double tight end when pricing gets really, really tight. Same type of scenario, just kind of extrapolating that across all of the other sports and then allowing myself to build a little bit more towards the top end and give myself a chance at really hitting the stud that has the huge game and really ends up winning some GPPs, preferably a little bit lower ownership. In golf, like hockey, you want to fade the chalk where you can because the chalk is so volatile that it's not steady anyway. So you get rewarded more often by getting off of the chalk. So I threw in those 20 lineups, used our domination station optimizer to build those lineups, and then went and just plug and play, plug and play, plug and play, plug and play, and just watched it pan out. Had a lot of Dustin Johnson, not having a strong week. Had a lot of Jason Day, who's been pretty good. Had a little bit of Phil, who looks like he's going to win the thing, and that'll help. But nothing hit really, really deep. For a dime, 4X is kind of just whatevs. A lot of 1.5x type stuff. It's enough to get my $2 back almost, but it's not going to end up being a very profitable day. But the winner of that tournament is going to win $650 on a freaking quarter. So, you didn't have a chance to win the thing outright anyway without a nut lineup, but at least you're taking a shot. Again, I put money in these things and I'm just trying to pull $2 out of it. I like the idea of practicing MME stuff, and so I might do more of that in the 20 max or more of that in some of the big 150 max lineups going forward. Just because I kind of am intrigued by that. I think that, and this is another thing, this will be sidebar number 2, and then we'll go build our player pool over on NBA DraftKings. But I think that honestly, the way cash games are going in the industry these days, they're with optimizers, with all of the education, all of the content so readily available, the average Joe is fairly educated these days. He's not the moron going out there who's going to run, Blake Bortles and Allen Robinson from a couple of years ago and then run it back with the New England defense against himself. He's that idiot either dried up, quit playing, or he got smart. Same transgression happened in, probably a bad word there, transgression, but the same evolution happened in the industry of poker several years ago. Games were getting tougher and tougher and tougher before Black Friday because all of the education was out there, and those that were serious were learning and were getting better. And so it was harder and harder to stay ahead of the curve. And so where I'm going with this is cash games are getting that way in DFS. You need to that meat of that bell curve is getting fatter. It's getting harder. They're getting all bunched up. Nobody's taking risk. Everybody's playing pretty safe. And so what you're starting to hear me advocate for is actually taking some risk. We talk, Football Geek in DFS Army revolutionized an article a couple of years ago with the hybrid lineup. He just started calling it a hybrid lineup. It's not quite GPP. It's not quite cash game. What you do is you're looking a little bit more towards like a political spectrum where, let's just say for the sake of left versus right, the left side's very, very safe. That would be like your Democrats and stuff. And I know that politically that's not true. The political spectrum, the liberal side's a little bit wouldn't be considered conservative. That's the right, but it just makes sense. We read left to right in the United States. So on the left, you've got your cash games, your safe stuff. You've got the non-risk type taking stuff, and what you're trying to do with that is just kind of eke across those double up lines and those 50-50 lines without taking too much risk because it's going to happen for you more often. The problem there is these days that bell curve is so fat that if you just barely miss, you fall on the wrong side of it and you make nothing. So by taking risk, you start leaning towards the Republican side from the Democratic side of the political spectrum. You start going more and more and more to the right. You cross over the middle, you go all the way to the right, and now you're worried about ownership and stacking and correlation and all of those types of strategies we talk about with GPPs to hit the upside and whatever. And now you know you're building more boom or bust lineups, but you're trying to get past the meat of that bell curve, knowing that you're going to fall way short sometimes and you're going to get way past it other times, and that's fine with you. But that's not good for cash games. What you need is you need to back that down a little bit, come back more towards the moderate side of the political scale, more towards the middle, and take some risk, but not crazy risk. Does that make sense? You're trying to get just past the meat of the bell curve and win those 50-50s that way. But what you're going to do when you slightly miss is you will probably fall short of the 50-50s. But when you slightly miss on the good side, you're going further and further and further into the GPP money. And that's called a hybrid lineup. You do a little bit of stacking. You don't really worry about ownership, but you're definitely trying to infuse a little bit of upside into those content. You're doing it safely. You're asking yourself, if you follow JM to Win 1 week season, is another DFS site. Great, highly recommended. What you're trying to do is you're trying to take guys that have a floor but also have a ceiling. You know, that was the term I echoed through NFL that I picked up from him, which was a good way to describe what you're really looking for. All format type players. Those build your core. Those are guys that not only have the floor and the safety, but they've also got the spot or the talent to erupt for big nights. James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry. Those are the types of guys you're kind of looking for in those scenarios. And they are the true slate breakers. And those are the guys you build around in hockey, in PGA, in anything. You're looking, always start asking yourself, does this guy have a floor, and does this guy have a spot this week he can maybe hit his ceiling? If the answer is yes to both those questions, he should be in your lineup. If it's no, yeah, he's got a floor but no ceiling this week, boom, cash only. If it's yeah, he's got a ceiling every week but he's got no floor, boom, GPP only. I don't use very many cash only players. I don't use very many GPP only players in my lineups. I use mostly hybrid players, which answer both questions with a yes. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Let's dive over into the NBA research station and make the player pool. For those of you that were waiting, thank you. For those of you that are gone, I guess I can't save you now. Like and subscribe to the channel while you're here. If you like this type of talk and you like this type of advice, definitely let me know that you like and support the channel, and hit that notification bell because you'll get those. Obviously, you'll get those notifications as we move on your phone or wherever. So I'm trying to do two things at once. I just remembered that I need to first sort by the and one system. That's the catch-all rating system. Now I can turn my point guards back on and get back on focus. The other thing I would recommend is the coaching and the talk that we do inside DFS Army. There's a great review. Watch this while we're loading that other one up. Don't want you guys to see too much of what just transpired there. Where'd we go? Where'd we go? Where'd we go? Hook me up. There we go. Because that's a private conversation between some of us inside DFS Army. But if you come out here to this link here, cheatsheetwarroom.com, blog, DFS Research, DFS Army Review, what you're going to find is a DFS Army review by a third-party guy. Yes, he's an affiliate of ours, but it's not exactly a biased review. If you read it, it's pretty damn good. And what he's telling you, he'll go through, and he's pretty brutally honest in a couple of places. He'll tell you where we're lacking, and he'll tell you where we're strong. And what he's telling you in this review is it's the community atmosphere, the building around what we're trying to do as a teaching site that makes the difference and provides the value. And you get that through the VIP program. The light membership is fine. He recommends that as far as a kind of a tool suite, and that's great. That's what we've got that for. But people enjoy the communication. They enjoy the interaction with the coaches, and that's the full VIPs. And that's what I'm telling you. You need to use the link in the comment section, dfsarmy.com, coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, to trigger that 20% off discount and make that affordable for you, and get in here and start becoming a better player. As we build these player pools, I can only touch on the surface, and I talk a lot on YouTube, and I can really only touch the surface of what we talk about in private conversations, in small group conversations and things inside DFS Army, as we try to make you guys better players by giving you access to the coaches and to the minds that are successful in this industry and are winning. Some guys roll for high dollars, other guys focus more on the coaching like I do. I would rather see you win, honestly, than put a bunch of money out there myself. I just get more joy out of that side of things. It's a personal thing. I'm not a big gambler. I don't like throwing a bunch of money out there. I do like keeping my finger on the pulse of the industry, and I do like winning and cranking it up slowly, but I'm just not a guy that's ever going to put $1,000 out there. It's just not my game. So now that we're sorted by the and one, we've got the point guards that are isolated. James Harden's on the Q list apparently. Russell Westbrook, Kyle Lowry, Chris Paul, Damian Lillard, Jordan Clarkson, Zach LaVine. These are guys that are eligible to be played. We'll look at the value type stuff. 5.9, 5.9. Darren Collison. Is that Darren Collison? It is. 5.9 here in CJ McCollum. Is that CJ? No, McCollum is a bad one. That's Dennis Smith. Dennis Smith hitting value again. That's one worth watching. Fred VanVleet, if you can time him right, that's worth watching. There's a bunch of mid-range value here. It's not terrible. Reggie Jackson on the upper side of the 5.5 guys. 6.0, Jordan Clarkson also on the and one matchup list. This is a double check mark. 5.9, Kyle Lowry, double check mark. Chris Paul, probably a double check mark. These are guys that are in good matchups and are a little bit underpriced for what they should do today. We'll scroll over and see if they stay in the hot or cold list. Chris Paul's on the hot list. Kyle Lowry's on the hot list. Colin Sexton on the hot list. Zach LaVine on the hot list. These are guys I'd be focused on. Chris Paul's probably a 3 check mark guy. Kyle Lowry's probably a 3 check mark guy. They hit the value and they hit the and one. Those would be the 2 point guards I'd be checking hardest tonight and digging into the most, right? Other plays, the value plays, the cheaper guys down here that have the lesser matchups. We've got what, the 5s and 6s. So your Clarksons, Dennis Smith, Darren Collison. Let's double check their little hot metrics. Where's Clarkson? Not really hot, but uptick. Dennis Smith definitely hot. Darren Collison not hot. So I'd put Dennis Smith on the list. I'd probably put Sexton and LaVine on the list. I'd obviously have Jordan Clarkson on the list, being that he's a value play, but he's not a super big. He kind of barely misses the list. Where'd he go? Kind of barely misses the. No, he's on the list. Jordan Clarkson's up here. Can't believe I just missed him. All right, so let's go to shooting guards. Because what is that? Like 5 or 6 names to pay attention to? We can really cut this thing down quickly by just looking at these 3 columns. So when these sort out, of course, Harden's up there again. Wiggins is interesting. Wiggins a little bit up and down. Jordan Clarkson again. 3rd on the shooting guard list was what, 5th or 6th on the point guard list? So there might be more point guards that are a little bit more valuable than Clarkson. Clarkson may be best used as a shooting guard. Bojan is on the list again. LaVine's on the list again. Doncic, Reggie Jackson, D'Angelo Russell. So same culprits with a couple of swips and swaps. Down here, VanVleet. These guys are going to be triggering the value again over here with Clarkson up the list again. Scroll over and look. Well, there's an Eric Gordon way down low on the value list. I'd be more focused on these guys that are also hitting the and one list. So this is a little bit of a modification. Instead of sorting and taking all the time by going through all of those categories individually, we're just looking for the overlap. Okay? Just looking for the overlap. I can let the optimizer find the other guys for me if they're pure punts and it likes them, and then I can reevaluate later in the day when that stuff happens. But for today, we're just looking for the core. And it looks like the core is going to be Clarkson, maybe some Bojan at 5.2, Doncic, Jackson, Russell, Hardaway at 5.9, VanVleet at 5.7. These are the kinds of guys. Now, why is Bradley Beal not bringing value? He's priced way up because Wall is gone and the prices have been allowed to catch up to him. He's not a value anymore. Doesn't mean you can't play him in GPPs and stuff because he can't. It doesn't mean he doesn't have a big ceiling at 60 points. It just means on average he's not going to be bringing you value for your price. He's a little bit overpriced or a little bit correctly priced. When I look over here at the who's hot again, I see Andrew Wiggins, which is interesting because shooting guards get hot. Hot streak shooters tend to hit their ceilings a little bit more often. So that's more of a GPP play, but it's not the worst because he's underpriced. Bojan, LaVine, I like those ideas. Was that Chris Middleton? No, that's Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson's on the hot list, not bringing value, not a super strong and one matchup. Is this Brogdon? No, this is Corey Joseph. Now, that's probably a value type of play if it registers hard enough tonight. And 5.3, not terrible, not great. So, but these again, you got your core 2 or 3 types of guys that you need to be paying the most attention to. So I'm going to turn those other off and leave the shooting guards on. And Giannis, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, real shockers, right? Andrew Wiggins was way up on the shooting guard list, or the small shooting guard list, but is down on the small forward list because these guys are in better matchups and have better talent. Bojan's up there again, though. Hardaway, Knox, Middleton, whatever. There's your value in Knox. Hardaway. Those are matchups and value. So those are double check mark guys. Maybe outside shot at Otto Porter. Down here, pure value would be Gallinari. But at 6.1x, what's his salary? 6,000? I'd rather take the $5,000 guys, right? Save the money. So it doesn't look like I'll be using Gallinari today. It looks like I would be using Hardaway, Knox, maybe Josh Richardson, Kawhi Leonard, maybe Paul George. There's not a lot of value left in that price and projection. Scroll over here. Maybe somebody's hot and tips the scale in my favor. Giannis is running a little bit hot. Wiggins running hot. We know that. Bojan running hot. We know that. Josh Richardson running hot. Nobody else. Jeremy Lamb. So there's a punt, most likely. 5,300 is not exactly a punt. A little bit of value there. So you're going to be wanting to stick with the matchups and the value. A little bit more, put a little bit more weight on those. Oops. Kick that out. Darn it. Got to let it shift. I hit the wrong button. There we go. Now it'll work. Now we're looking at power forwards. Blake Griffin's up the top of the list. Siakam's at the top of the list. Ibaka. That's interesting with them being on the same team, and the kind of the ping pong has been going back and forth. One plays to 4, one plays to 5, I suppose. Larry Nance, Sabonis, Harold. Go ahead, laugh at me. I don't know the league that well. I don't need to know the league that well to kick your ass. All I need to know is where the numbers are coming from. We talk about that inside the Army all the time too. A lot of guys say, "Well, you never watch the games, and you're only focused on the number." Well, how come I'm whipping your ass? You know, it's not all watching the games is nice. This enhances my experience. Enhances when I do watch the games like late at night. I want to see how I'm doing. I sweat my my leagues and my GPPs and stuff a little bit. I want to see how a game wraps up and finishes up. So I'll watch a little bit, but I don't need to watch this game. It's too predicted by numbers. It doesn't mean that I'll be super successful over the long term because watching the games does help, but it is overvalued. People that sit there and tell you you got to watch the baseball games to see how they're no, I can watch hard contact. No, you got to watch the basketball games to see how the rotations are going. Nope, I got articles and I got you guys for that. So you guys go ahead and do all that hard work. I'll sit back, watch a few numbers, create a player pool, and then go read you at 4 or 5 o'clock tonight, and then pick your brains in our coaching channels and kind of do it that way because it's more efficient for me. I'll stay in tune with the games that I like: hockey, golf, baseball, football. I like those games. I'll read up on NASCAR. I'll read up on NBA, and I'll come in there and use the machines and tools we have at DFS Army and kick your ass. I can be a jack of all trades, master of none. I don't need to be good at everything. That's just not. And if you play that way and you don't have time to do all this research, then this is definitely a tool that you need access to. Mark Cannon, Portis, these might round out the top guys. We look over here at value. Looks like that core right there is your double dip in Ibaka, Nance, and Sabonis. Right? Outside shot down here at Chris. Maybe a Paul Millsap if he gets off the queue list. The rest of these guys don't have a ton of value baked into their pricing. Their pricing's up. So I need to come over here and find out in that core of Ibaka, Nance, and Sabonis which ones are running hot. Oh, Larry Nance. Larry Nance is probably a pretty strong play tonight. It's a top 5 matchup. We saw he's bringing value and he's hot. So there's a 3 check mark play. Larry Nance, probably somebody you need to be paying a lot of attention to tonight. The others not running quite so hot because their minutes have been more secure. You want to run a hot player, it'd be Bobby Portis. Saric maybe. There's Dwight Powell. These are the hot players that you want to run. You want to watch for them bringing a little bit of value. Where's Dwight Powell? Where's Dwight Powell? 4.9, not tonight. Saric. That's Taj at 4. Nope, not tonight for Saric, right? Portis 5.3 maybe. So now there's one that I might give a little bit of a little bit more weight towards because his matchup is okay. His value is just okay, and he's running hot. So odds are he can break that number today. He's in a decent matchup. He's bringing decent value with his price, but he's running hot. So if he continues to run hot, last game out, 35, 42 average over 3 games, 31 average over 10 games. Last time out, 35. What did 35 get you at 60? 35 got you 6x almost. So over the 5.5, over the 5.3x, he might be bringing you a little bit more value than the 5.3. That might be a little bit of a conservative number. That's what I'm pointing out. And depending on whether or not you hear his name bounced around the industry or not would depend on whether or not I might throw him in a GPP lineup tonight. Because I think that everybody's going to see this stuff. You know, they'll see the Blake Griffin. They'll see the popular plays. They might see the Larry Nance. What they won't see is the Bobby Portis, maybe. So that's a borderline GPP type of pick for me. We'll round off with centers and we'll get out of here. What? God, we're at 30 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. I can talk. Hopefully you're learning a lot, though. Hopefully you're gaining information and it's worth your time. Karl Anthony Towns, Drummond, Blake Griffin, Siakam again, Nurkic, Jokic, Ibaka, Nance again, Sabonis. Look at how these guys have dropped down. This was our core, you know, in the power forward range because they're supposed to bring value and they had good matchups, but they don't have the matchups these guys have. So look at the value at the top and Karl Anthony Towns at 5.8x. Would you rather have 5.8x at $10,000 or 5.8x at $6,000? You'd probably rather have it at $10,000 because you're buying more raw points. That's going to be harder for him to hit a real ceiling of sorts, but we know he's got one. He's got a 75, 80 point ceiling. You know, and should he hit that, it'd be great. So these are probably that's probably your core play. These are probably your other core plays, and then you can get a little bit cheaper yet. But I would scroll over again, and we'll look at who's running hot in these guys. Is Towns running hot? No. 52, 54, whatever. But he's been pretty damn consistent at that number. And at that number, what are we projecting for tonight? 58. I don't know. That one feels a little overcooked. Unless his matchup's really good. Well, his ADVP is good. That's defense versus position. How many fantasy points they're giving up against the center spot in the Clippers organization. So it looks like Clippers are giving up a lot to the center. So it might be worth a few points. It might be worth paying attention to. Andre Drummond's running hot lately. That might be an okay play there too. He's not bringing a lot of value, but he's running hot. So just like we were talking about with Bobby Portis, maybe worth your time. And then, of course, the core down here, we know that Larry Nance is running hot. So you could use Larry Nance as your center if you didn't want to use any of these guys, or you could use a couple of centers, you know, put Larry Nance in a utility or something like that. There's just a lot of ways to go tonight, but that's roughly your core. There are about 15 guys I'd be focused on that we mentioned. The rest of the guys are mediocre to okay. I would like and love and adore those guys in the optimizer today, and then I would let the coaches decipher out and filter in the other picks, the other plays, and show me how to go about doing that, focusing on value, focusing on matchup, things like that you'll hear. Some guy will be cheap and he'll be really widespread throughout the industry. You know, maybe you bump him a little bit and pull him into your lineups, whatever. But you can build a really solid lineup out of that core of those 15 players. You might be able to get a full lineup in out of those guys because there were a couple of lower price guys in there with some of the studs. And that's typically what we're going to be talking about hopefully today inside DFS Army in my coaching channel as well as others. So hit me up inside there. Join us through the link, coupon code CHOP, CHOP. And we will see you guys on the inside. We'll be talking a little bit of hockey today, a little bit of NBA today, and we'll be watching the last couple of holes of the golf tournament wrap up. And hopefully we'll break the $2 barrier and actually show a dime worth of profit, because that's just how we roll inside. It's how I roll inside DFSArmy.com. $2 out, $2.10 in. That's a good day. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you on the flip side.